Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, you lovely people. How are we all doing today? As you can see, the Infinite Gameplay is now up, and I'm currently streaming on Twitch.zaga. Hopefully, I can become a pro at some point in the future. For now, I'm just enjoying playing and moving up the ranks. Sorry if I sound a little bit off today. The current change in weather has really affected my nose and my throat. I don't feel sick, but I sound a bit sick, so there's that. Now, the topic of today is mental fortitude. What does that mean, Josh? What does mental fortitude mean? There's a lot of buzzwords. There's a lot of hard-headed people out here telling you to be strong, telling you don't break, don't falter, don't bend. For me, the definition is slightly different because if you can't roll with the punches that life throws at you, are you strong, or are you just kind of brittle? Life ebbs and flows. If I, hit the gym twice a day or 6 hours a day, right, religiously for 6 months, and I don't have time for anybody else or anything else, I eat my meals, everything's disciplined and structured, but if someone tells me why not have a day off or this, that, whatever, I get annoyed at it or I shun it off completely. Am I being mentally strong, or am I being an introvert with a hobby who's protective about it? For me, the mental fortitude and the strength, it comes from being able to flex along with these things. If I can, still hit the gym that hard, and then I can go out for a meal, and I keep my macros in check, and I don't drink alcohol. Or if I'm going to go out to the bar with friends, and they all go out for a cigarette, and I don't join them. But I'm still out here, I'm still being flexible, I'm still enjoying what life has to offer, but I'm not sacrificing my morals and values alongside it. That to me would be sort of mental fortitude. Now, there's going to be a few different ways that we go about this and a couple points. The first thing I will talk about is time. And I know we've talked about time management a lot because it really does shape how we see life. Well, if you're mid-20s like me, there's probably a lot of pressure on you even when we were young, let alone the kids nowadays, that you got to be something quick. Otherwise, you're just an invisible ant in this world. You're just another statistic. There's this pressure to be the best or to be the biggest, or, don't let up, don't wait till you're older, blah, 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 you'll feel it when you're older, etc., etc., etc. Nah, man, get out. Now, if I kept on going around everywhere being like, whoa, I wish I did this, or if only I did this, or I could have done that, blah, 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 blah. That's sort of me living in the past. Maybe I'm punishing out myself for my mistakes. Maybe I'm punishing others in my brain for their mistakes on my life or whatever. Likewise, I could say, well, I could do this, or I could be doing all of these things, or well, why am I not doing this in the next, 2 weeks, and blah, 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 blah. I'm now living in the future, which is fine to plan, right? But I really think planning is an exercise that should be allocated time for, rather than just living in this planned moment. I'm now living in the future, right? The presence of now, that is the main point I want to say, right? The power of the right here, right now, this current moment. You might be thinking, yeah, Josh, that's incredibly hippie and spiritual of you, but I've got situations in my lives. I need to think these things through and all that stuff. Again, I'm not saying don't think things through. You definitely have to think about what you're doing. Otherwise, maybe you don't. But I would definitely say you got to think things through. But don't live in that mindset. What I mean by the here and now and the present moment is when you look back in the past, let's say mistake, we're all human, we've all made mistakes in the past. At that time though, I wasn't living in the past. I was living in the present last week or last month or whatever. I wasn't living in the past. The past is like a mental construct. I was living in the present moment at that time. And the same goes for the future as well. Right? I can plan to the cows come home the next 20 years, but to the hour, to the fucking T. But when I get to the future, I'm not living in the future, am I? I'm living in the present moment. It's just further on in the timeline. When I get to tomorrow is not the future. Tomorrow is today. And that's why it's important, because hindsight and foresight is all great, but what about your sight, guys? What about your actual eyes? Maybe let's use them. You got two of them anyway. So one for making a mistake, and then you can replace it for a bionic eye, and then one for the real world. Yeah, this is really, really useful, because if you can accept your situation, you can allow yourself to just be in the here and now. You find it easier to act on things. And I'm talking about procrastination, I'm talking about worries, anxieties, and all that stuff. because you can't do multiple things at once. You can't do too many things at one go, because you're never actually going to be present for these things, right? If I was chilling with a girl and I'm watching a football, I don't even follow football like that, but like, I guarantee you, I'm not listening to one of these things, and it's not even by purpose, right? It's not even like being a prick. It's just that your brain physically cannot do two things. You might have feel like you can. When I'm recording the videos for these, right, from the Halo Infinite Theatre, I will read my uni book. That is to an extent multitasking, because I'm, doing uni whilst I'm editing clips. But really and truly, I'm reading my book, and it's just on a time frame for about 10 minutes. Right, I'm still doing one thing at a time. If I'm eating and watching a YouTube video, when I go and put stuff in my face, I'm looking at what's on my fork or my spoon or whatever, and then I'm eating it, and then I look back at the screen, and then I'm paying attention. So take it with a pinch of salt. Obviously, there'll be people that can do it better than others, but if you plan to multitask everything, you might fall into a trap of spinning your wheels. This will be a bit more like free form as well of a video. Just because I'm excited to try something slightly different in terms of how I'm recording these things, and also obviously the new gameplay as well. Hopefully you had to roll the punches with me on this one. So yeah, the here and now, the present moment, allowing yourself to exist. Right, you might say, Josh, mate, I've got shit on my plate. I can't just be sitting here like a fucking hippie, enjoying the now. And that's true. But I tell you what, right, you're in the now whether you like it or not. You want to sit here fuming and angry as hell and emotionally constipated, or do you want to sit here and actually breathe and uncrease your forehead and be like, okay, here I am? And also, I'm not saying stay in a shit situation. If you're in a good situation, then it might be easier to sort of visualize this whole like here and now thing. If you're not in the greatest of situations, it's the perfect time to exercise it to its fullest effect, right? We talk about mental fortitude after all. Kind of similar to stoicism, I suppose, where it's like, okay, I'm not in the best position, but instead of being mardy about it, all right, okay, well, these are the facts. This is where I am. Which way do I want to go? If I want to get out of it, okay, objectively, what are the best ways to go out of it? Like, let's say someone's in debt, for example. Objectively, the best way to go about it, maximize your income, minimize how much you spend, and then you can use that math to sort of figure out, okay, well, how long will I have left to be in this position? Then you have an answer for that. And then now being in that position is part of the plan. So you can kind of mentally relax. Yeah, you still got to put in the work, of course, like everything in life. But that to me is mental fortitude. Being able to say, okay, I'm in this position. That's all well and good. That's all well and bad. These are my ways out of it. And I'm not going to let my situation affect how I feel about myself and my feelings. And I'm not going to let it affect how I treat other people. That would be one sort of mental fortitude that I would say. And the second one, ironically, is to friggin' try something new and like really, really stretch out that mind. A really good example of this is, and again, I know it's another physical example. Forgive me, I'm a personal trainer. Is guys' strength, physical strength, right? A lot of guys they like to be strong, all that good stuff. But not many guys are flexible. And your strength is all well and good in your perfect squatting world or your perfect bicep curl world, but if you got into a fight and you pull a muscle because you can't touch your toes, your strength is now null and void. You're not very strong when you've injured yourself. If I have to pick up my kid, I don't have a child, but if I did and I had to pick him up from the ground and I strained my back because I never stretch, but I can like bench press 315, it's kind of fucking useless, really. Do you know what I mean? Like, not to be that guy, but as a man, how are you going to only be for show and not for an actual like purpose? Like function over form. Bauhaus. For any architecture nerds out there, Bauhaus was a movement where they implemented function into form, and I really, really like it. Yeah. You have to be able to stretch your mind out, and I'm saying a lot of things, like even things like, okay, you might not get along with a certain type of people, whether that be the job they are. And I'm going to say it because it might sort of like rub people up the wrong way, but I'm going to say it. Some guys, they don't like being around gay people. Some girls don't like being around incredibly sort of quote unquote masculine men and all that stuff. Some people don't like being around footballers. Some people don't like being around drug dealers. Some people don't like being around people because of what they dress or whatever. However, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, right? So your judgment It only really puts yourself in a box. It doesn't really put them in a box. You don't know that the drug dealer is actually feeding a family of 8, and he's actually the most selfless person you ever met. You don't know. You just don't know anyone else's life, right? So to build that mental fortitude, fucking be in different environments and situations. Like, push yourself to grow. And growth is painful because it's different. It's new. The reason why our brains hate growth is because they're very much adapted to what they know works, because it's easier to anticipate certain outcomes. If I see around me that all of the plants that I can eat have red berries, and then I see a blueberry, I don't know if I can eat it or not and still be alive. My brain would naturally just keep on eating red berries because that's a certainty that I know that I'll live. That extends. Now take that tiny one berry example and I just apply that to friggin' everything. Right? That's why trying something new hurts. That's why putting yourself out there hurts. That's why, opening up to someone or trying to communicate your feelings or your boundaries or being more disciplined or asking for a raise. All of these fucking things in life, that's why they hurt, because they're new and different. How do you get over them being new or different? Do them all the time, so then they're not new or different. Now they're the norm. Now that's the norm. You pushing your boundaries is the norm. Now your regular life, which to everybody else is crazy because you push yourself, that's now the norm. You've reached like another rung on the ladder of what your brain experiences. That becomes regular programming to you. How much more things could you accomplish if you never had that thought in your head that said, oh, what if I don't succeed? Which is fine. I'm not saying don't question stuff. I'm saying is like, you'll know when you're holding yourself back or when you're scared of a situation due to lack of answers. I get it. The world is a big and scary place and you never know what's around the corner, both like in social settings and physically and everything like that. However, if you never turn the corner, you will never know and you will never go anywhere. And that's kind of my main point. You got to go somewhere. You got to grow, and how you grow and how you build mental fortitude and how you accept your situation, they're all one and the same. This is life. You can't escape it, whether you like it or not, right? How do you know that reincarnation doesn't exist, right? There's no evidence. You can't tell me that otherwise. So there you have it. This sounds a bit more sort of spiritual, I suppose. I mean, my tone definitely doesn't sound very spiritual because I'm sick of people trying to tell me, oh, well, that's not applicable to life. That's not applicable to life. And then they stay in their tiny little zones forever and hate everything else around them. And I don't like hating things around me. So I kind of get a bit fired up and I want to talk about these things. Let us know what you want to hear in the next video. I'm totally down to be way more specific for certain things. I can bring out some numbers with some graphs, talk about anything you guys like. And as always, you like, comment, share, and I'll try and reach out to all of you. And I hope you have a good one, and I hope you achieve everything you need to achieve. Peace out, guys. Love. In a bit.